This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. This episode is sponsored by C-School, the online school for creativity training. If you'd like to unleash your creative potential and access a free Creativity Blueprint training series, then just head over to c.school. That's www.c.school for your free training series. In this episode, I speak with Sylvie di Giusto, and we talk about how to make a great impression, becoming an expert, and confirmation bias. Enjoy this episode. Hey, it's James Taylor. I'm delighted today to be joined by Sylvie di Giusto. People packaging is what I do, says Sylvie di Giusto, who helps individuals and organizations to explore how people make up their minds very quickly about them, their leadership potential, or their company, and either open a door or slam it shut. As a professional keynote speaker, corporate trainer, and image consultant, Sylvie uses her multicultural background to work with leaders from around the world who place great importance on themselves and their reputation. Austrian by birth, French in her heart, Italian in her kitchen, German in her work ethic, and American by choice, it's my great pleasure to be joined by Sylvie today. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, James. I'm super excited to be with you today.
So share with everyone what's going on in your life just now.
Oh, a lot of things are going on in my life. You know, as a business owner, there is never a pause. You always have to hustle, kind of. And I'm just exiting from one of the busiest speaking seasons that we always have during fall, right? And entering a new season, which will be focused on writing the next book. I'm due with my next book, and so I'm gonna dive into the next book during the next weeks.
And does it get any easier as you continue to write more and more books? Is the second book easier than the first book?
It's so much harder. I remember with the first book, I remember talking to somebody you might know, Mark Sanborn, who is one of my leadership heroes and one of the people I read every single word he wrote down, right? And I remember talking to him, and he once said to me, you know what? Nobody cares about your first book. Everybody just cares that you have a first book. So go and write a first book. Not saying that it should be a bad book, but just go out there and publish your first book, get it done. It's more important that you have a book. And so what first-time authors usually do wrong then is they sit down and just whatever is in their brain, they write it down because it has to go into that book. Absolutely. And of course, I made that mistake too, right? So now, with the second book, you sit there and think, oh my God, now actually I've already written everything down. Now it's getting so much harder to find the right topic for your right audience and write an incredible second book.
It's a little bit, I originally come from the music industry, and it's a little bit like that second second album is always a really difficult one, because the first album you've put some of all your ideas in it. It's just like everything you want to get into that first book. And the second one you feel, okay, what do I write? What's left? What do I speak about now?
Exactly, because with the second one, I remember saying, oh my God, now I have to do research, because for the first book, we usually don't do research because we have researched our entire life and write down everything we know. And now we actually really have to work hard for the second one. So to answer your question, no, it's so much harder and it's so scary to get it started.
And how did this all begin for you? How did you get into this world of, you're known as a speaker and a trainer on image and a consultant around image and how someone packages it themselves. Where did it all begin for you? Where did this journey begin?
Oh, it began long ago because I was on the other side. I was in corporate Europe. I worked for a big retail and tourism company and built up their management academy. I was 20 years in human resources training and development and executive coaching. And I was always fascinated by the fact that, sometimes in corporate, when you hire people, especially external, then people walk into the room and they look exactly the way you want them to look. They behave exactly the way you want them to behave. They say all the right things, and then you hire them, and years later you have to fire them because of a lack of performance, right? And on the other hand, we had so many young and ambitious people in that organization, and there was a gap. I thought, why didn't we identify them as potential leadership material? Possibly they would have done that job much better. Why didn't they stand out to us? And why didn't we put them on this position? So I was fascinated by the fact between how do we experience people, what's their brand, what's their image, their reputation, what plays a role besides what's written on a piece of paper in terms of knowledge, experience, skill set, and why do we sometimes trust that packaging more than what we have in terms of facts and figures in front of us.
So you, at this point, you had that kind of first career in Europe, as you mentioned, working with big companies, executive coach there as well. When did the transition then happen, and what was the decision for the transition? Because obviously today you're based in New York. That must have been like, there's two big things going on there. I sense, first moving from the corporate world to being an entrepreneur and building your own thing, and also the move from Europe to the US, to North America. What were the reasons for that big change?
Well, let's talk about the move first, and it's getting very private. So, are you ready? It has to stay on this podcast.
We won't. It'll just be me, you, and the listeners. We're not going to tell anyone else.
Exactly. So, my brother told me when I was 5 years old. It was the first time that I said to him, "I want to live in America." And it has always been my dream. I have no idea actually why I have been so connected to this country my entire life, but I always wanted to be here. And I went through all the phases. I applied to jobs, didn't get jobs. I tried to get a visa, didn't get a visa. I tried to get a green card, didn't get a green card. And it just did not work out. I could not make this dream happen. And as very often it happens when you expect it the least, right? When I gave up and thought, well, I'm never going to live there, I'm never going to work there, an opportunity was there. And the opportunity came up when I actually just became a mom. I was in the hospital and my husband walked into the room. I had my little baby on my arm, and the first thing he said is, "I have a job offer in America." And I said, okay, let's go, right? Let's go. And 9 days later, I was on a plane with a newborn baby, moving to the United States. And, a lot of people said to me, "Oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that and wait. And his company is going to take care of you. Stay in Europe for 2, 3, 4 months until you are settled in with that baby." And I said, "No, I'm on that plane. I'm waiting for this plane since 30 years or more. I am on this plane, and this is what brought me here. I just always wanted to be here, to live here. I wanted to be American, although I've never visited America before I was on that plane, but I knew this is my home. And when my feet touched ground here, I finally knew I'm home."
Yeah. So one of the great things about America as a country is you can go from all different parts of the world. I did this. I'm kind of moving to California, and you can kind of reinvent yourself in that way. You don't have the old world baggage of the European that we're kind of so used to, where things are from where I'm from in the UK. It's very class orientated, and in America they don't really care. That's not really such a thing. So, as you kind of started going into those meetings and starting to build those new relationships and your new kind of life as an image consultant, corporate trainer, and speaker, I'm guessing you had to be your own guinea pig, because you were kind of having to ensure that you had those great first impressions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You described it very well when I arrived here. And to go back to your other question, I wish I could tell you a fantastic story how well planned out all of this was, and that it was always my dream to become an image consultant or whatsoever, or a speaker. And unfortunately, I can't say that, because it was purely a necessity to do something new. And as you said, if there is one country in the world where you can just try anything, whatever you want to be, and forget about your past and just be adventurous and creative and reinvent yourself, then this is the country to do it, because nobody is going to judge you. Nobody. And one of my principles that you just mentioned is, of course, I'm in the business of first impressions. So I have to walk my talk, right? I always have to make sure 24/7 that I make that first impression that I'm supposed to make or that I would like to make, because we are all individuals and we would all like to be perceived in a different way.
So you made that move and you started kind of building your career, little by little as well. Sometimes I guess that you can try different things as you're going on that new path, and you give it your heart and your soul, but for whatever reason it doesn't work out like you'd hoped, and maybe you go down a wrong avenue. Can you maybe talk to us about that experience of that, something that you worked on and you maybe wish you'd made a different decision, but what were the lessons that you took away from that experience?
So when I became an entrepreneur here, the first 2 years, I was brutally not unsuccessful. I rarely made business. And I think one of the reasons was that at the very beginning, I tried to offer everything to everybody. You know, do you want me to be your wardrobe consultant? I'm gonna be your wardrobe consultant. Do you want me to be your shopper? I'm gonna be your shopper. Do you want me to be your speaker? I'm gonna be your speaker. Do you want me to be your trainer? I'm gonna be your trainer. As long as you give me money for whatever I'm gonna do for you, right? So I was very, very broad and very wide, and I just wanted to have clients. But I realized after 2 years, obviously looking on my banking account, that this is not a very successful model. And also when analyzing my requests, that, James, if you have a heartache tomorrow, right? Do you want to go to a general doctor or do you want to see a heart expert?
You want the specialist. You want that person that you think they know exactly where the problem that you're going through.
Yeah, so I had to step back and find my my unique expertise that only I can offer, and where I'm obviously an expert in. And my clients are going to find me because they are looking for an expert. And when I made that major move and said, I'm only going to focus on corporations because I spent 20 years in corporations. I know them inside out. I'm only going to focus on higher level professionals because I have worked for C-suite members half of my life. I know how they think. I know what they eat, what they dream, what they say. I know them inside out. I know all their problems. When I made that major move, my business changed. And till today, I adjust to make sure I attract my perfect client.
So I'm guessing that took a lot of courage, because you at first, maybe someone listening from outside, you're saying, wow, you cut off all those opportunities to really just focus on a very small, you think is a very small group. Did you feel at the time this was a big risk, or did you feel, hey, I've got nothing to lose, let's do it?
No. Letting go is always difficult in our private lives, but also in our business lives. Because if you carve out your niche market, you have to let go of so many other things that are somehow attractive for whatever reason, right? And so letting go is a very painful process. But you have to realize if you say no to some things, that opens opportunities to say yes to other things. So whenever I let go of a big chunk, magically something else shows up where I can invest more time, and it serves me and my business and my clients better. So
why do you think, going that level down, becoming, the expert, the real expert in a particular area, that you are known for the one particular thing, why do you think that is so powerful? What do you think? What is going on the other side? What is in the mind of the other person there? What are some of the things that they're thinking that a real expert has that no one else has?
Well, so here's the thing. The first very obvious impact it has on the clients you're going to have, because clients want to hire experts, right? They want to work with an expert and not with somebody who has a general idea about the issue that they have. But you have to look beyond that. Afterwards, the media wants to talk to experts, right? So it gave me a lot of PR opportunities that I had with media out there, because a reporter doesn't want to work with just anyone. They want to talk with experts. Your colleagues, they want to be surrounded by experts. It will have an influence on your network. I have speaker colleagues who want to refer other colleagues, and who do they refer? They refer experts, right? Where they are pretty sure that those people deliver exactly what their clients want. So it will have a huge impact on the clients that are going to hire you, but I promise you there are side effects of it that you might not consider immediately.
Give me some examples of are there any negative side effects from from going so niche like that and really focusing down?
Yeah. Well, the negative side effect for me personally, that there is constantly distraction out there where I think, oh, maybe I should do that actually, because it sounds so interesting. It sounds so challenging. It could be a new toy to play with, right?
Yeah, the bright shiny thing syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the hardest part for me, to always stay focused. And of course, there are always toys that they blink in my way, and I think, oh my God, I'm going to give it just one try. But in the end, I always have to focus and get back and say, this is my core business.
I noticed one exercise I saw on you've got a great website. I think I see a lot of websites for speakers and things, and I think actually yours is one of the best because it's got great clarity there as well. And your speaker reel, and I see lots of speaker reels as well. And one of the things that really interests me, I think it's obviously on a workshop that you were doing as well, in addition to your speaking, where you have everyone going around putting Post-it notes on each other's backs. So talk to us. What is that exercise all about? Because I'm looking at a room of executives all with Post-it notes on their back, and I'm intrigued.
Yes. So I'm in the business of first impressions, right? And people very often ask me, so what is it? Tell me, is it good? They want me to look at them and immediately say, it's good, or you should adjust this or that. And I tell them, well, I don't know. I don't know, James, if your first impression is good, because I don't know what you want it to be. So I ask you now as a guinea pig, as an example, James, what is the one word you want to be known for? What should pop up in everyone's mind when they think of you, just of you? Tell me that one word.
Creativity.
Creativity, good. So this is the most important word and the most relevant word when it comes to your first impression. So I would challenge you and ask you, do I see that creativity in your appearance, in your behavior, in your communication, in your digital footprint? Do we find that everywhere? And wouldn't it be interesting for you to find out if that is really the first word that pops up in everybody's mind when they think of you, right?
Yeah.
So if you would be my client here in Manhattan, we would do it a little bit different. I would take you down to Wall Street in the morning around 8 a.m. And for 4 or 5 hours, I ask hundreds, usually 800, 900 people walking by, what do you think of James? What do you think of James? What do you think of James? And they all give me those words. What?
And this is just without hearing the person speak, or it's just purely looking at the person's impressions?
Yes. Because the way people judge you that you already know and where you already had the chance to perform and show your excellence and your knowledge and your skills is very different from the way new people experience you who don't know anything about you. So they walk by and purely judge you based on what they see there, right? And that had a lot to do with your visual appearance, with your body language, with a lot of things. So we are going to analyze what we find out there. Since I can't do that with all my participants in sessions or in events, I let them experience that a little bit different. And this is what you saw. I encourage them. They get labels, a sheet of labels, and they only have 5 minutes of time, depending on the size of the group. They have to go around the room, look at each other, the first word that comes to their mind, write down and put on each other's back. So in the end, each of them has 30 labels on their back, not knowing exactly what it is. And we analyze then, is there a gap between what they want to be known for? Is there a pattern on their back, right? Are they becoming, or do people describe them very similar? And we add a third component because they all work in a specific industry. And so when we go back to your word, creativity is obviously a great word if you work in a creative industry. But what if you would be an attorney? Or what if you would be in finance? Then you probably struggle a little bit with that, because your industry and the clients that industry serves to expect something else than creativity in you.
So is there ways that you can also play with that? Because I'm guessing also we all have biases when we see people. First impressions, we instantly make that that decision in maybe seconds. I'm guessing you probably you would know how quickly that is. Is there ways of being able to play with that so people think that they're going to be getting one thing, but actually you can twist it, and you can kind of surprise and delight perhaps what people think they're going to get and what they actually get. I mean, I'm thinking here, for example, when we actually use the word creativity, one of the most creative people I've ever known is Edward de Bono, who, when you first look at him, he looks like a university professor, and he's very quiet, and he speaks very slowly, and he's very he's not the person you initially think is particularly creative in that way, but actually when you hear him, he completely switches your mind. So what should we be thinking about that in terms of maybe playing with people's first impressions?
Well, there are two ways, right? The first way is that you use confirmation bias. That's the bias you talk about to your advantage, because people want to be right. Their brains is looking for proof. And on that way, they ignore everything that goes against their first initial idea about you. And so confirmation bias, you can use it, or it can become a disadvantage, because if they see something in the very beginning of you that doesn't speak creativity, something boring, or something that distracts, they find something sloppy in your appearance, for example, James, then they're going to find that sloppiness afterwards in your behavior, in the words that you say, in the materials that you bring on your websites, in your products, in your services. They are going to find it everywhere, because their brain is looking for it. It's just very simple brain performance.
It's a bit like when we buy a car and suddenly we notice that car everywhere, or that color of the car everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So it's confirmation bias that is working against you. So, and I encourage my clients, use confirmation bias for your advantage. Give them exactly what you want and what they are looking for at the very beginning, and they're looking for proof too. So if you want to be perceived as creative, what can we do at the very beginning that confirmation bias hunts down every single creative thing that we can deliver them in your appearance, your behavior, your communication, in your digital footprint? That's the one thing, the one part. However, here's the thing. You have to be aware that sometimes people with a very strong brand message control their image piece by piece like a little puzzle. And sometimes, they make us believe that are, actually not as true. So as an example, when you think of other creative people, let's take Steve Jobs, right? You might think he was also somebody who says creativity must be one of my main words in my image puzzle, because I'm such a creative mind, and I don't have the time, for example, to think about my visual appearance. That's why I always put on that black turtleneck and a pair of denims, because I don't care. I have to do more important things than thinking about my visual appearance, and then it looks very creative. That's why I have this uniform.
As you get further and further, and the thing I immediately think of is that as human beings, we've obviously, our evolution has taken us to this place, and I guess from the brain's perspective, this is good energy management in the brain, because you have to work less hard if you can quickly identify something very quickly, even if there is confirmation bias, by allowing you to make that split-second decision, even if maybe there's a small chance it's going to be wrong, it saves the energy for you in which you can be doing other things.
And it leads people, but to show you that example with Steve Jobs, who looks at this from another perspective, that uniform that he is wearing that makes us believe he's not very creative, because it doesn't look very creative, or if he doesn't care. Each of those black turtlenecks has been an Isai Miyake handmade, custom-made piece for hundreds of dollars. It is in $900, and that doesn't sound to me like somebody who doesn't care. That sounds to me like somebody who puts that together like a puzzle.
Yeah.
With thousands of pieces, and controls exactly what people think about him.
Fascinating. And so as you started to kind of develop your career as an image consultant and a speaker, can you talk to us about maybe a key moment, an aha moment in your journey, a time when you maybe made a very important distinction and you went, okay, this is where I should be going with the direction of the work I'm doing?
There are so many. And I collect them all, the aha moments. I wish you could look into my home office here. I have them here on my wall, right? The very important moments that I had in my business, I wrote them down and they are framed here in my wall. And at the very beginning of my journey, there are, for example, Jeffrey Hazlett said to me, "Don't be cheap, be the best instead." And that always stick to me. Don't be cheap. Don't, underestimate yourself and the value that you have. And instead of offering cheap services, be the best instead. Ron Carr said to me, "Speak from your heart, not from your mind," which I find is a very important reminder. Shep Hyken, another speaker, once said to me, "Be amazing always. Just always try to be amazing." Mark Scherenbrock is there. And I wrote down, "I am great." This is something that we very often are supposed to say, right? I'm great. And he crossed it off and said, "I am grateful." And it's just my daily reminder to be grateful about that amazing journey we are. And so I have a series here of major milestones in my business, and usually they were connected to people that I value or who I value, and that's something very important to me.
Now that's great advice that you're receiving from some of the best professional speakers in the business. You obviously, I know you're heavily involved in the National Speakers Association and giving your time there as well. Are there common mistakes that you see speakers make when it comes to their image? Maybe that, those first couple of seconds or when they get up on stage. What are some of the things that, if someone's listening to this now, whether they're a speaker or maybe they're a performer or a musician, getting up on stage, that they need to be very, very cognizant of?
Oh, you know what? When you go up on stage, that's already the second step, and you're lucky that you're up there on stage. I think the most common mistake that I see, or the advice I would like to give any kind of performer, is that nowadays we don't make a first impression anymore in person. We make our first impression online. And I really appreciate your feedback about my website, because I found it becomes so important, much more important than what you were on stage. Because if you don't make an amazing first impression on the internet, you are not going to be on stage. If you don't catch your meeting planner, your speakers bureau, the moment they explore you online, chances are little that you are actually on that stage. So clean up your first impression on the internet first. Make sure that you make an amazing and powerful first impression on the web, and it will be easier for you to get on stage. And then, of course, there's the second step. You cannot be totally different than you present yourself on the internet, right?
Yeah.
They must feel the same when they actually meet you in person. But be aware that the first impression that you make in 9 out of 10 cases nowadays, it's digital and not in person anymore.
So, I mean, that's a great. You mentioned obviously the post-it notes on the back, and I'm guessing that would be an interesting exercise to do. Maybe a speakers event where a group of speakers that get together, to everyone to look at each other's websites and say, what is that word that you, after you've looked at all these different websites, what is that word? And if it's not that word that you probably want to be trying to, in my case, say creativity or whatever your leadership or whatever the word is, then you probably need to have a little bit of a rethink and think about how you can integrate that. So you have. I'm trying to think of the best word for this, but almost like an integrity across everything, whether you're on stage or off stage.
It has to be consistent. You have to send that message consistent. It doesn't help if you have the fanciest website and then you show up and you're not the fanciest speaker, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be consistent. But really, I find it so important. The way we present ourselves digital has become so much more important, because it's the first step. It happens all the time. Right now, James, somebody probably Googles your name and Googles my name and makes the decision to reach out to us or not.
It's so quick now. So you're talking about online. Do you have an online resource or a tool or a mobile app like Evernote, for example, that you love and you find really valuable for the work that you do?
For the work that I do, well, I have a lot of apps, because one of my major work principles is I have a paperless office. Believe it or not, there is no paper in my office, and that has been a very long journey, trust me, and a very painful journey to let go of paper. So what I really enjoyed lately is the last piece of paper that was left was a notebook where I took notes, right? That was the only thing that I always carried with me. And when I decided also to digitalize this, I got an iPad and make my handwritten notes now in an Evernote related app. And the amazing thing is that they scan it and they transcribe it kind of, and it has a search feature which has brought such a new level to my notes, because with paper notebooks you really never go back and flip through the sites and search for something or have the opportunity to look for something. It was more an archive of information that I really didn't use afterwards. And with that new way to take notes in meetings and about clients, that has brought such a new level to my notes, because I have them with me first and foremost all the time. They are digital, and I can search even within my handwritten notes.
Wow, I think you're incredibly brave, because like you, my last bit of paper that I have is my Moleskine notebook. That's the last thing I tend to have. And that final step, the step to doing the iPad, and my wife does the iPad thing, but she uses that for her notes. I don't know. I can't sometimes even read my own handwriting, so I don't know if a machine would be able to do to do it as well. If you could recommend just one book and one record, one album to our listeners, what would they be?
Well, I would recommend my own book, right? The Image of Leadership. And
we're gonna have that there anyway. So you get a second book to recommend, so a book that isn't your own.
A second book that isn't my own. Well, that's a really tough question, because my bookshelf is full of books, and usually my favorite, I'm going to give you one because it's easy, it's light to read. It's of actually somebody you might know out from the UK. It's Phil Jones, Exactly What to Say, because very often we miss the words and don't know what exactly to say, and he's a sales expert, and I really enjoyed that read lately because it is easy and it is fast, and it has a lot of practical advice when you don't know exactly what to say, in particular in sales situations.
Great, and we'll put that on the show notes as well. And what about the album or the record? Because I know you hail from Austria originally, and obviously some of the greatest music in the world comes from Austria. But is there a favorite album for you that you just love to play? Maybe before you're going up on stage in your headphones, or maybe when you're at home or you're in a home office.
Actually, it's not an album. So, of course, I have my favorite bands and I have my favorite singers and my favorite albums, but I'm going to share something else with you, what I love. So in my home and with me on road is Alexa. Alexa, you can get Alexa on Amazon, that little thing,
in the house.
Device here. What I love about the albums she plays for me is that you can share your mood with her. You can say, Alexa, play some music that makes me happy. Or Alexa, I'm sad, play some quiet music. Alexa, play. So you can describe the type of music that you would like to listen, and she mixes an album together for you. So I have become friends with Alexa when it comes to music and a lot of other things.
Lovely, some smart
she plays my favorite album.
Some smart artificial intelligence. I don't know whether maybe the next generation will be even judging whether you're dancing or not as she's playing it. There's a little feedback loop. Let's imagine, final question for you here. Let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and you had to start from scratch. So you have all the tools of your trade, all the knowledge that you've acquired over the years, but you know no one knows you. What would you do? How would you restart?
I would immediately restart as an expert. I would not waste any time with trying to serve everybody. I think that's what I would do differently.
Get really focused.
But anything else, I want to do exactly the same way, including all the mistakes that I make, because I think we don't learn from our successes. We learn from our failures. by doing them at least once. You shouldn't do them twice, because on that way you should have learned something.
And you mentioned your book very briefly, but to tell us a little bit, for people that are interested, have been listening to this, and I really want to understand how to make a better first impression, how to just, that those initial impressions, that what is the book that they should be picking up of yours, and also if they want to maybe connect with you after hearing this interview, where should they be going online?
Mm-hmm. So the book is called The Image of Leadership, and it describes how relevant first impressions are, how confirmation bias can either work against you or for you, how you can adjust your appearance, behavior, communication, and your digital footprint to be perceived as the leader in your organization, the leader in your industry, the leader in your community, that leader that you deserve to be. And you find that book on Amazon. It comes as print, but also as audiobook. It comes with a free mobile app that you can download, so you can have me with you in your pocket all day long. And you find all information about me on my website, which is executive-image-consulting.com. And there is an online course if you're interested to learn the how, to go kind of through a makeover when it comes to your first impressions. Then I invite you to stop by at howyouimpress.com.
Wonderful. Well, Sylvie, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. I hope at some point I get the chance to hear you speaking on stage as well, because I've heard so many great things about the work that you do. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all about your creative life. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It has been a great pleasure to meet you, and I see you on stage.
Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.